Hi friends, my name is Rowan and today I want to talk about social media, specifically the way my relationship with social media has changed since taking a long break from it and how I've changed as a result. I am not exaggerating when I say that it has genuinely changed my life for the better, and I've got a lot to say about it, so maybe grab yourself a cup of tea and let's get started. So I first decided to take a break from social media, Twitter and Instagram in particular, in August of 2021. I was in the thick of a really difficult breakup and I didn't want to post about it, but I also didn't really know how to be present online without expressing my pain, because throughout my many years of social media use, oversharing became very normal to me. So much so that I had a hard time not oversharing. I ended up posting something that I would later come to regret, and after that I was so full of shame that everything in me screamed walk away. And I did. I trusted that feeling. I deleted the apps off my phone, and I didn't set a time frame or anything. I was just like, I'll come back when I'm ready. I honestly kind of expected I would maybe be gone about a month or two and just hop back into it and nothing would really change. But oh boy, was I wrong. I stayed away from social media for about 5 months, and by the end of it, I truly felt like a completely different person. And the way I engage with social media as a whole will never be the same. I should mention also that about 4 months in, I thought maybe I'm ready. Maybe I can just ease back into it with a little Instagram post. But I went to write the caption for the post and I just started overthinking the shit out of it to the point where I actually broke into tears. And it was then that I realized if I were truly ready to have a healthy relationship with social media, this probably wouldn't be happening. So I stayed away a little longer until I was truly confident that I could engage with social media in a way that wasn't so unhealthy for me. And can I just say that I am so grateful for that feeling that told me to walk away, because before that point, I was terminally online. Not just chronically, terminally. It was slowly killing me. While I was away from social media, which by the way was the longest time I'd ever spent away from social media, I experienced some major changes. Changes to my self-esteem, changes to my mental health, changes to the way that I viewed myself as a whole, really. And I want to say that the biggest change I've experienced is that I'm actually happy now. And I don't mean happy as in I'm in a good mood all the time. I mean happy in the deepest sense of the word. The kind of happy where you just know on a soul level that you're gonna be okay. It's a quiet kind of happy, but it's truly the most profound form of happiness I've ever experienced. And I won't say that that's 100% due to stepping away from social media, because it's not. However, it is directly linked to my spiritual journey, and it is no coincidence that the bulk of my spiritual awakening happened during the time I was offline. Being offline gave me the silence and space to feel my feelings, sit with my thoughts, tune into my intuition. And when I stopped using social media as a coping mechanism, and by coping mechanism I really just mean distraction, I turned to healthier things instead, like taking a walk, literally just going outside. When I felt isolated, when I felt overwhelmed, when I was in so much emotional pain it felt like my body couldn't contain it, being in nature became medicine for me. And before long, I started to realize that I wasn't just coping anymore, I was healing. The impulse to open Twitter became the impulse to put on my running shoes and take a walk to the park, or get in my car and drive to the creek. And I know that all sounds very touch some grass, but I swear to you, spending more time outside has literally changed my life. And speaking of silence and alone time and how it's been good for me, spending time with just myself away from the view of people online has seriously helped me to get to know myself. Because I'll be honest, I have always had a problem with caring too much about what other people think of me, to the point where I didn't even know who I was because I was so caught up in trying to mold myself into someone that other people might like, which is definitely a result of childhood trauma, but I truly believed that who I was at my core couldn't possibly be good enough, and I had to supplement my personality with traits that I thought would make people like me, and even repress parts of my own personality altogether. And I convinced myself that this improved version of me was who I was, but it wasn't. And by walking away from that environment that enabled me to perform an artificial version of myself for the benefit of being liked, I was able to slowly shed the parts that weren't me and eventually discover the real person underneath the performance. And in the silence and solitude, my opinion of myself was the only one that mattered for the first time. I was able to look at the authentic version of myself that was emerging and say, I like this person. And I'm still in the process of becoming fully me. Like, I very much still have work to do because these are deep wounds and healing is a never-ending journey, but I've done the hardest part already, which is identifying what needs to heal and committing to doing the work to heal. And I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't chosen to step away from social media. And on a lighter note, another just small positive change that I've noticed is that sometimes when I have a thought that I normally would have tweeted when I still use Twitter, I just text it to my friends instead. And it's just nice because by doing that, I end up actually having a meaningful interaction with people I love, whereas if I had tweeted it, I would have maybe gotten a couple likes or an LMAO, or if I was lucky, a key smash. You know how a key smash is the highest honor you can receive. But yeah, when I was addicted to social media, I was taking all of my little thoughts and feelings to Twitter, where I usually got very little back. And in doing that, I was, in a way, neglecting my close friendships because I was wasting opportunities for meaningful connection by always choosing the option of shouting into the void. Which brings me to another sort of realization I've had, which is social media can give us a false sense of connection. Which is not to say that you can't make genuine connections on social media, because you absolutely can. But what I mean by a false sense of connection, I guess, is the little interactions you have with your online friends, like liking each other's posts or reacting to each other's Instagram stories. Like, those are nice, but they're not the same as having a conversation. And they're not a replacement for spending quality time with close friends. That probably won't resonate with everybody, but I feel like someone needs to hear that because I needed to hear that. I used to have such severe social anxiety that I convinced myself that the little interactions I was having online were all I needed because I was too afraid to pursue anything else. But it turns out it was never enough, and avoiding social interaction will only ever serve to strengthen your fear of it. Anyway, that was a tangent, and I don't want to preach to you about genuine human connection, but I will just offer you this. If you spend a lot of time on social media and you still find yourself feeling lonely and empty and you don't know why, ask yourself if you're getting enough quality interaction with people who make you feel cared for. Ask yourself whether the interactions you're having leave you feeling full or leave you feeling like you're missing something. And also try bringing awareness to how you feel when you're alone. Because if you're like I was when I was using social media really heavily, being alone with yourself with no distraction from your inner world probably makes you feel really uncomfortable. But in my experience, the silence and solitude bring healing. And healing is scary. Like, it is uncomfortable, but there is so much joy on the other side of the discomfort, and it's worth it. Now, while all of the benefits are so very worth keeping my distance from social media, I won't lie and say that there are zero downsides. One downside is simply not knowing what's going on in the world. Raise your hand if you only ever hear about current events by way of social media, because I know I'm not the only one. And not getting the news from social media can be both a blessing and a challenge in that I'm not being bombarded with bad news constantly, but I'm also ill-informed on major things that are happening. But the way I'm dealing with that right now is just by relying on a couple of people in my life to tell me what's going on and give me the most crucial information so that I'm not completely out of touch. And that's working pretty well for me at the moment. And I've had to deal with FOMO, which I personally believe is one of the biggest reasons a lot of us stay on social media, even when we're aware that it's making us miserable. I used to be afraid to not be on social media because I was terrified of missing out and terrified of the possibility that everybody else would be experiencing something that I'm not. But a question that I've found helpful is, does that experience benefit you more than it depletes you? And if you find that it doesn't benefit you more than it depletes you, ask yourself why you stay on social media. Ask yourself what's stopping you from walking away. So what now? What have I learned, and what do I do with what I've learned? Well, I don't see myself going back to Twitter ever, but at the very least not anytime soon. I'm very much a never say never kind of person, but at this point I can say that I have absolutely zero plans to go back to Twitter. Like, the idea of opening Twitter makes me feel physically ill. I have started to ease back into Instagram, but I don't think I'll ever use it the way I used to. In fact, I've set some pretty strict boundaries with Instagram to make sure that I don't go back to using it in a way that's unhealthy for me, and also kind of just made little tweaks to make my experience on Instagram more relaxing and enjoyable overall. For starters, I cleared out the accounts that I'm following. I brought the number down from about 500 to about 100. I'm very strict about the accounts that I follow now. It's really only people I know, creators that inspire me, and educational things. If it doesn't make me feel good and it doesn't add something to my life, it doesn't make the cut. I also set a 30-minute daily time limit on Instagram for myself, but I really only go on Instagram about once a week anyways, if that. And if I do have the desire to post something, I always stop to ask myself what my motivation is. Like, am I looking for validation by posting this? And if the answer is yes, I simply don't post. And arguably the most crucial boundary I've set is no more memeing my pain. I will not make jokes and memes about my trauma and mental health anymore. I used to do that constantly, and I honestly believe that it inhibited me from actually dealing with them. I know a lot of people online talk about how making memes about their mental illness is how they cope, and there can be validity to that, and I'm never going to tell anyone that they're coping wrong. But I will say that for me, I did get a little stuck in my suffering by doing that. Like, as someone who placed a lot of their value on how cool and funny people thought they were online, I can tell you that using my pain as the source of my humor and then getting likes and retweets in return did kind of encourage me to hold on to that pain, because it kind of felt like, what am I without this? Will people still think I'm interesting without this? What if people think I'm boring? As if being boring was like the worst thing in the world to be. And you know what? Maybe I am boring now, and maybe that's okay. If not memeing my suffering means I'm boring, then fuck it, I'm boring. 'Cause I'd much rather be boring than miserable. And I was so miserable, and I didn't even really fully recognize that until I left social media and found myself a lot happier. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you so very much if you watched to the end of this video. It genuinely means so much to me. You will not find links to my socials in the description, but if I ever decide to make a public Instagram, you guys will be the first to know. You can definitely expect to see more content in the realm of spirituality and self-development, but I think there's so much that this channel can be if I just keep myself open to possibilities. So, if you want to come along for the journey and see what happens, go ahead and subscribe. I would love it if you would stick around. And last but not least, please give this video a like if it resonated with you, and leave a comment if you have any thoughts you want to share, because your perspective is valuable and I would love to hear what you have to say. Alright, thank you so much for watching and hearing what I have to say, and I'll see you in the next one. My back hurts so fucking bad.